So today we're playing 2550 Taiwan dollars in a private home game. All the other 5 people are good friends of mine. We have played together for more than 3 years, so we know one another very well, and it's a fun game. So this first hand, the middle position, the guy who has recently retired, opens up to 250, 5 big blinds. And I am at a cutoff with 6-8 of clubs. And I feel like this player is very tight, even though he has already retired. I decided to play 6-8 suited. The rest fold, so we go heads up to the flop, and what do you know? The flop comes 10-8 rainbow. Good flop. And the middle position guy checked. I know this board misses him most of the time, so I bet 200 into the pot, about 1/3, and the middle position quickly calls. So the pot is now 975, close to $1,000. And the turn comes a good card. The turn comes the ace of clubs, giving me a flush draw along with the gut straight draw. I know this card favors him more since he's the open raiser, but he checked to me. I decided to check after him and maybe call a river bet. And I think if I checked and I make a flush on the river, if a club arrives or if I hit a 9, I can get a lot of value because he's likely going to call a large bet, thinking that I don't have an ace since I checked after him on the turn. So the river comes a very desirable card, the king of clubs, giving me the backdoor flush. And the dude sitting next to me, who has a lot of personal history with me, we're good friends, but we fight all the time. He suggested the open raiser that if he bet pot size, I'm going to fold. The middle position player did exactly what he was told. He bet pot size, he bet 1,000, and I quickly called because I think it is unlikely that he has a bigger flush than mine. It's possible he might have 10-9 of clubs, he might have queen 10 of clubs, queen jack of clubs, and I lost to all those hands, but it's unlikely. I didn't know he was bluffing or he actually had something, but I quickly make the call. It turned out he had 2 pair. He had ace king, and he decided to check to me on the turn even though an ace arrived, because he decided that I probably couldn't call a big bet, and he was just having fun on the river as he followed the suggestion that he should bet big and I will fold. And the dude on my left, after seeing that I won, he asked for a tip, 25 New Taiwan dollars. He just grabbed it and refused to return it. And so it was a good start of the night. So after one round, I am at the cutoff again. I look down at my cards and I see ace queen offsuit. Players all folded before me, so I opened to 200, 4 big blinds, and only the button, the dude on my left, who I have personal history with, he called. I know this player very, very well. Let's call him Mr. Y. Mr. Y can have almost anything on the button, and he just wants to look at the cards. He wants to totally kick my ass, and I'm totally cool with it. So we went heads up to the flop. There's already 475 in the pot, and the flop comes queen 3 deuce. 2 clubs and 1 diamond. I have no club in my hand. However, I hit top pair with the best kicker. So I see bet 200 into 475, close to half pot, and the dude called. And the pot is now 875. By this time, I know he probably has a pair, something like that. And the turn comes 7 of spades, a blank, basically. So I bet 500 into the pot of 875, more than half pot. This dude pretends to tank for a bit and then calls, claiming that he's thinking which chips to call with. So by this time, I know that he has something, but I still don't know how big his hands were. I should have put more thought into it. Pot is now 1,875, and the river comes the queen of spades. So all flush draws have missed, and this queen pairs the queen on the flop, giving me trips and top kicker with an ace. So pretty much the nuts against this player, because I know that he would definitely raise me on the turn if he has flopped a set or turned a set. So with the trips and the ace kicker, I most likely have beat. I have the best hand. And like I said, I should have stopped and think about how big his hand were. Did he have 2 pair? Was it possible that he also had a queen? If so, I probably should have bet big, but instead I bet small because that didn't stop to think. I guess that's a problem of drinking whiskey at the same time of playing poker. I bet very small and he called quickly. And guess what he had? He had 7 deuce. He turned 2 pairs on the turn and he was claiming that he wanted to play it slow. Well, I was happy with the result because it totally kicked his ass. Now, this next hand I didn't play, but it was fishy enough to be recorded, so here goes. I was on a bottom, I looked down at Jack 5 offsuit, and the small blind, Mr. Y, could not chop with the big blind because he refused to chop with him in the last round, so he limped. So the big blind made it 300 to go to apply some pressure, and Mr. Y, the small blind, called. The pot is now 600. The flop comes 10-6 deuce with 2 diamonds and 1 club. The small blind, Mr. Y, checked, and the big blind bet 200. And the small blind called. The pot is now 1,000. The turn comes the jack of spades. The small blind checked once again, and the big blind bet 1,000, which was pot size. My guess would be Mr. Y, the small blind, had a small pair or a flush draw. There were 2 diamonds on board, whereas the big blind had 2 overcards or a big pair. Now, facing a pot size bet, let's hear what Mr. Y is saying. So he's basically saying shit like, fuck, I'm calling. And what you heard, the B, used fairly often on our table. It could be loosely translated as, you sucker. Again, it's the B. Good phrase to learn, but never use it against people you are not really close with. So the river comes the ace of hearts. Mr. Y checked once again, but I guess the big blind, my man who brought a bottle of whiskey to the game, knew that something was off, and he quickly checked back. Mr. Y then showed ace queen with no diamond. So he rivered the top pair. What the hell? Now the big blind said, fuck that shit, and turned over pocket queens. His instincts were right. So one could argue that Mr. Y had a gotshot straight draw on the turn with his ace queen. But still, what the hell? Well, it's just how he plays. Welcome to the aquarium. Next hand. The middle position, Mr. J, I would say an all-around balanced player, opens to 200. Then the bottom has just retired 3-bet to 500. I'm on the big blind and look down at pocket 7s. Now I expect Mr. J to call very often if I make the call, and that's usually what I do with small, medium pocket pairs on the blind. And I'm feeling lucky today. So I called. The crazy dude on the big blind called as well. Mr. J now said to Mr. Y, you in too? And called. So we went 4 ways to the flop. The pot is now around 2,000, and the flop comes 9-7 for rainbow. So yes, I have middle set, and I check. The big blind also checked, and Mr. J dunked 800 into 2,000. And after saying, I don't think you have 7-9, the bottom called. And now with my middle set, I thought about raising, but I also thought if I just called, Mr. J is going to fire 1 more bet at least. So I just called. Mr. Y, the big blind, got out of the way, and the pot now is around 4,400. The turn comes the queen of hearts. I decided to check again, and Mr. J thought for a bit and bet 2,000, which was close to half pot. The bottom quickly folded. And at this point, I thought about raising once again, but I decided that it's possible that Mr. J somehow connects with the queen. After all, he was the first open raiser. It's also possible that he now turns a flush draw, since there are 2 hearts now, and I don't want my check raise to scare him off those hands. So I decided to just call and wait to see what happens on the river. The river comes the deuce of diamond. I checked, but I really wish I didn't. Because based on the hands that played with Mr. J, he's unlikely to fire once again since I demonstrated strength by calling a big bet on the turn already. So I should probably instead bet really small to see if I can get him to call. Anyway, he indeed just quickly checked back and I turned over pocket 7s and took down the pot. He later claimed that he had ace 9, so it was unlikely I could get any more value from him. But still, I'm happy to take down the pot. Moving right along, I opened ace 9 offsuit to 150 at middle position, and I got 3-bet by the big blind to 500. This dude doesn't really 3-bet very often, so I called and hoped to see a good flop. And indeed, that's what we get. The flop comes ace 9-4 with 2 hearts. The big blind continues betting. He bets 350, and I make the call. At this point, I don't want to raise just yet, since I think he most likely just have one pair type of hands, big ace probably. I wouldn't really put him on a flush draw, since he wouldn't 3-bet with anything other than king queen of hearts pre-flop so I just called. And the turn comes to 7 of clubs, and he keeps betting and put in 500. I decided that it's time to get some value from him if indeed he has what I think he has, a big ace. So I raised it up to 1500, tanked for a long time, and eventually folded. So I figure he most likely just have ace with the medium kicker, ace 10, ace jack, that kind of hands, because he would fold jacks, queens, and kings much faster. Nice try on my side though. This next hand, let's try something different. Let's guess what I and Mr. J are holding. So I opened from middle position to 150. Mr. J checked his cards and really quickly made the call. So I knew at that time that he doesn't have anything big, most likely just small pocket pairs, small to medium suited connectors, A with a small kicker, things like that. And the big blind called as well. So we went 3 ways to the flop. The flop comes 4 of hearts, 4 of club, and 3 of clubs. Basically a board that favors him a lot more than it does me. The big blind and I both check. He bet 200 into 470 and only I made the call. The turn is the queen of clubs, completing the flush draw, and I check once again. He thought for a while and bets 500. I made the call. The river is the 6 of clubs. Now there are 4 clubs out there. I lead out 1500, and after some thought, he moved all in with around 8,000. I tanked and looked down at my ace of club and ended up folding. And he later showed everyone his cards. I'm sure some of you have already guessed what he had. He had the straight flush, 5-7 of clubs, exactly what I thought he had. Well, I admire my disciplined fold. Well, there goes the first video. Let me know what you guys think. Press subscribe if you like. See you next time.